Okay, and welcome. Everybody is logging in. I am Pavia Rosati. I'm a co-founder of the New Travel Conference, along with Jack Ezon of Embark and journalist Shivani Vora. We have been having such a great conference this whole week, and I'm really grateful to everybody who has signed on and who is joining us. We've had some incredible panels, really touching on a lot of really interesting issues of the day. And today we have a series of workshops. My friend Wendy Perrin brought me this workshop when she heard about the conference, and she said, you know, over at wendyperrin.com, we were going to be working on something talking about the importance of speaking with a millennial audience. What do you think if we do it at your conference? And I said, absolutely, especially when she told me the lineup of people who she was doing this conference with. I don't know if any of you saw a lot of the panels we had yesterday, but one of the panels, How to Keep Travel Accessible, kept talking about the importance of the millennial audience, reaching it, capturing it. It's the future. I'm a Gen Xer, and I just want to say we still travel also. But anyway, Wendy is going to get into these issues with her panel. Everybody knows the drill, but if you have any questions, May, I'm going to ask you to turn on your camera, please.
There we go.
Perfect. Okay, we're all ready to go. If anybody has any questions, put them in the Q&A. I'll text them to Wendy. We'll get to as many as we can. And now, without further ado, I would like to introduce Maita Baranchea. She's the founder and owner of My10. The last time I saw her was, I think, in Morocco. Nice to see you again here. No, I saw you in New York in January. Yes, sorry. Gwen Kozlowski is the president of Exeter International. Jennifer Virgilio is the partner of Queen of Clubs. Mei Zhang is the founder of Wild China. And of course, our moderator is Wendy Perrin, editor-in-chief of wendyperrin.com. Wendy, over to you.
Pavia, thank you so much. Can you hear me okay? I hope.
Can hear you absolutely perfectly. And if anyone has any sound issues, I'll just pipe in and I'm here to help.
Terrific. Thank you so much. So hi, everybody. Welcome to our panel. The idea behind this workshop is that, you know, the millennials are going to be the first group of travelers who really come back traveling, because younger travelers are going to get back on planes and be willing to explore the world before older travelers are. And I think, you know, a lot of us, a lot of people in the travel business, understand that millennials view travel very differently. Millennials certainly plan travel very differently. And while it may not be necessarily necessary to overhaul your business, you're definitely need to add flexibility to the way that many people in the industry do business. So let me start with Mei Zhang, who is the founder of Wild China and who has a lot of Silicon Valley. She's based near Silicon Valley and has a lot of, works with a lot of those types of tech and millennial travelers. May, can you tell us what are the three most important things that people really need to understand about working with 30 and 40-year-olds?
Well, first of all, thank you for having me. I can't say I have a lot of billionaires in my clientele, but I hope that we'll be working with more and more millennials. I would say working with the millennials or the younger generation, three keywords that I constantly use to remind myself. One is computer, two is woke, three is Instagram. And computer, we all get it. You know, everyone's getting information, transactions online. And that's something like if we had a legacy program, we need to really move towards that direction. Woke is a new word that my kids taught me. That they are much more aware of the world, the issues, the equality issues, and the curiosity to travel the world is there. And we really need to somehow look at our programming and be woke, really. And three is Instagram driven. Everything, that's their source of information, and that's their outlet, part of the reason for travel, to share out. And so I'm conscious of these three important things when we do programming.
So what is the most important thing that you do to gain their trust? Let's say you've got a millennial who's contacting you.
The one thing I do not want them to think is I'm so old schools. So this is probably me projecting it. So I think two things are important. One is efficiency. The other one is transparency. Efficiency being like, I want the transaction to be fast. I don't want it to be like I schedule a phone call a week away from today, and then I go on for a long email. I want things to roll at fingertips. Ideally, this is a group of a generation of people who conclude their transaction very quickly. They may do research for a long time, but they're used to buying things on their fingertips. So I want it to be efficient. Transparency is interesting because a lot of people here in this meeting room, are used to a bundled package of service. I just find a lot of these clients would look at it and go like, what's in there? And we're building a little buffer for extra TLC here and there, but they want to know what is in there. So transparency in pricing, I find important.
What is their, May, what is their budget like? Are they frugal or all over? Okay.
All over the place. And I would say it's kind of interesting. I've noticed the actual techie uber rich are actually in some ways underspending compared to their wealth, because they want to have an experience that is more in line with a common experience that they want to give their kids. They may not always want to have the fanciest presidential suite in the hotel. A lot of them would take an Airbnb apartment in Beijing, which is, I don't think those Airbnb apartments are more than probably 300, 200 square meters, which would make 1,200, 2,000 square feet type of thing. For an internet billionaire, they're fine. Right? But the younger millennials are surprisingly willing to outspend their budget for things they care, like an amazing experience somewhere, a meal, afternoon tea at the Aman, or somewhere a sunset on top of a mountain. They're willing to spend for the wow moment.
So they want a mix of high and low, it sounds like.
I think those are two separate groups. Yes, the millennials in particular, they will skimp on a lot of things, right? Take public transportation, fly real budget flights on discount, but then spend the entire cost of the flight on a meal at a Michelin star restaurant if they can book it.
And so how do you give them, they demand efficiency, as you were saying, and we know they want instant responses. What's one way in which you try to give them that speed, that efficiency they demand?
Wow, this is something that's interesting. It's actually not so easy to come by because all of us have businesses that are set up. All of us have client staff who are used to a certain protocol steps of doing things. And for me, it's really important that I pick out a few staff or myself go in there and experiment with almost a new way of doing business. For example, in the past, we may send a proposal and wait for 3 rounds of email communication before we send a credit card, so that we don't look like we are, too eager to close the transaction or rushing the clients. But nowadays, if I know my proposal is clear, I will ask them to send the credit card link early on. So if clients read the proposal, they're happy with it, they can click, be done with it, and cross off a to-do list on their item. So this kind of business process changes, I have to start with a few people. I can't quite implement throughout the organization yet. And that's one of the examples. Another example could be, rather than sending them a 25-page trip document, I will send them a short email summarizing what's coming and the time and location, the driver contacts. I will send an invite into their calendar, so that when they travel with their cell phone, they have it all there.
Right. And in terms of, this woke mentality and this types of inclusive, experiences that they want as part of an itinerary that show like inclusivity and diversity and understanding another culture. Is there any way in which you've changed your itineraries, let's say in the past couple of years, just to appeal to that, to have that, it resonate in that way?
Well, we tailor most of our itineraries. I think this younger generation, more than before, are anti-establishment in a way. Like the classic sites really can only account for no more than half of the itinerary, the iconic sites, or even less. And the other half is all experiences that allows them to either have an Instagram wow moment or go deep into the community and do something. One of the examples is a trip we did for a group of young alumni from Harvard Business School. We took them to Guizhou, this ethnic area. There are these developed tourist sites. Over a weekend of 3 days, we went one tourist site. The rest of the time, we actually put everybody in the village, allocated all of them in local families, and set a task and said, okay, our task is to work with the communities and help them build a ditch, irrigation ditch along the rice paddy fields. All the business school skills came into play, and it's a mess. We needed the villagers to give directions, villagers to give us directions to do it. But those kind of experiences actually won their trust. They said this is really something they remember for a long time.
May, that's terrific. Thank you so much. So now I'm going to move along. So everybody, May, while China is a tour operator, I am now going to move along to a DMC, which is Maita Baranechea, founder of My10. Hello, Maita. It's great to see your smiling face there in Argentina, I presume. So Maita, can you tell us, what do you see as what are the 3 most important things you need people to understand about working with 30 and 40-year-olds today, or working with the tech crowd?
Sure. Well, thank you, Wendy, and thank you, Pavia, and the whole conference that is being so great, and everybody there who is listening today. So yes, I would think the 3 main things I agree totally with May, and I'll try to add some 3 more. I think they live the present. They have an ethos as you only live once, or more so, you only live today, like seize the day, carpe diem. So they live life to the fullest and crave for very unique experiences. Then secondly, I would say doing good. They're all in for community service, to making a difference. They want to make the world a better place, for sure. And then that they are, for them, the world is a global village with no borders. They feel global citizens with a local identity, and therefore have a strong affinity with a diversity and inclusion.
That's fascinating. Can you give an example of one of those do-good types of experiences that you may have added to an itinerary? What's a sort of experience that you've created for this group of travelers?
Well, I really think that they're the ideal transformational traveler, that they really appreciate the positive impact that travel can have. They understand the power of travel as the power it has for impact and to transform. So they really like immersive and meaningful experiences. They are a little bit like, the hero's journey, the 3-phase process where it's departure, initiation, and return, so that they venture into the unknown, they acquire wisdom or knowledge by interacting cross-cultural with other cultures, coming back home and implementing what they've learned and sharing it. They're always sharing with their friends, family, their inner circle, their community, with Instagram, whatever it is. So in many occasions we've, and I think these things have to be prompted intentionally so that they happen, so that they live something and push them off, try to push them out of their comfort zone, psychologically, physically, emotionally. So sometimes it depends what I also think they usually have a niche expertise. So we need to find out what there is. They value niche expertise, and they'll be a little bit monotasking. They'll develop a skill to the fullest. So if we know what that kind of interest or hobby is, it's much better. But let's say in general, we'll do, for example, take them to visit an orphanage or even a slum, or make them, well, we support certain causes. So for example, we had a family build a house in a rural village. That's Un Techo, a roof, that NGO that is so good for this. But it can be anything, you know, it has to be something that resonates with them, because they'll even really get involved. They'll donate. They're good donors. They like to contribute. They really think they have to help make the world a better place, as I said.
What's the most important thing you do to gain their trust? When they first contact you, how do you win them over?
Well, I think by being there always. They like, as we know, instant answers, not only instant answers, instant everything, instant actions, instant gratification. So if we are by their side always, and in a way, I try to meet them in person, or at least have long conversations on the phone with them, so that we can get to know each other better and build that trust, because I believe that once you gain their trust, it's there forever. And they need you because they love having someone who trusts, so that they can help you, because they are quite altruistic, but they'll help you and they'll help their friends, because they want to have someone they can refer to their friends. So that's a bit how I see it.
What is the biggest mistake not to make?
Well, I think they maybe not caring about value. They really value value. So you have to be very careful when you price something and stick to their budget. A price is like stuck in stone. It's written in stone. It's our word. So we have to be very transparent with costing, because they can check any price on the internet, and they will. But then it's easy. Once if you're transparent and clear, I don't think there's a way of having a problem.
Do you find, as May seems to, that they kind of want that mix of high and low? Like there are certain things where they want to scrimp on certain aspects of their trip, but then they want to splurge on other things. And what is it that they want to splurge on?
I agree totally. They can be very frugal. They actually live in general below their means. There's even I'm talking the high-tech moguls and very, very super rich people. They're not ostentatious at all. They're quite frugal, but at the same time, even the younger and millennials that don't have that kind of lifestyle, they would splurge on things that they really care for. So unique experiences, especially something that may expire, that is a one-time offer, you know, something like thing that, again, if it's in their niche, you know, if it's a car race or a football game that will never happen again, or the possibility of seeing a certain show, they'll pay whatever it is to be there. And yes, and not missing out, that they will do that. And also if it's something that that it really has value, you know, that it resonates for them as value, then they will splurge on it. They like perks, you know, they.
Terrific. Maita, thank you so much. So now I'd like to move on to Jennifer Virgilio, who is a partner with Queen of Clubs Lifestyle Services. Jennifer, and Jennifer, what would you say are the three most important things that we really need to understand about 30 and 40-year-olds?
Hi, Wendy. Thank
Hi.
you. Hi, Pavia. Okay, so I would say that they're conscious travelers, that they're mindful of others, they're mindful of the environment, they care about human rights, sustainability, and that the traveling is an experience, that it's a real experience. It's not just about the vacation. It's about doing something unique and authentic. They're also more spontaneous, and I would say definitely trendsetters.
Mm-hmm. And what is the most important thing that you do to gain their trust when they contact you?
Well, we always work transparent. All of our pricing and proposals, everything is already transparent, which is very important to them. But we try to guide them. So we try to, of course, listening is key, but then guiding them and suggesting based on what they want to do, what we would suggest, rather than just trying to sell them something, so that we're also gaining their trust and being honest with them. I also agree with May that technology and efficiency is also very important to them.
Right. What are some of the ways that you are efficient with them? Can you hear me okay?
I'm starting to hear everybody just a tiny bit garbled. It started with Jen, but let's hope that we're going to move past that.
Okay. So Jennifer.
And you're perfectly clear now.
Oh, great. Terrific. Okay. Just a little blip. So you were talking about like how it's important to be efficient. Can you talk about a few things that you do to really give them those kinds of instant responses that they demand, and that kind of efficiency? How do you wow them in that way?
Well, in the beginning, of course, in the proposal process, sometimes we may already know it's high season and we may be delayed in our response times. So I try to set realistic deadlines and expectations when they can expect to hear from me, and give them the reasons as to why it may be a little bit longer than they would like. But when they're on the ground, we operate a 24/7 service by WhatsApp, by text messaging. So we're in constant communication with the clients, and it's instantaneous, which they love. So that goes a long way.
And what do you think turns them off? Like what's the mistake not to make? What's something you'll never do again?
Something cookie cutter, something not personalized, as if we didn't listen to what they had said to us already, or giving them something that's, they could find on the internet themselves. We have to try to really show them what is different about what we're doing compared to what they're finding online. Mm-hmm. Being inflexible also is a turnoff to them. So trying to find a way to meet their expectations with flexibility. And of course, also meeting their deadlines.
Mm-hmm. And can you talk a little bit more about what their values are like travel-wise? Like what are the kinds of experiences that you find them wanting more and more, like giving back to a community or volunteering in some way, or really getting to know the local people in a more immersive way than before?
Meeting the local people and immersing themselves in the culture and the community has been very, very important. We have so many people that come over, and the biggest thing is I want to live where the locals are. I want to live like a local. I want to go to the local market. I want to go to the local bar or cafe. I want to learn the language with a local. So that is extremely important and has been, but I think it will evolve even more so in the future, especially with what's happening in today's world. I think, they grew up in this way, that they respect the environment, that they're conscious travelers. These were important issues that they grew up with, and it's only going to be even more important as, we're all becoming so much more aware. So this is very important to them as they travel. And it's something that we've been working on as a company during this time, to give more back locally in each destination that we're in, through our clients touching and feeling rather than just giving a donation.
Jennifer, the other day you were telling me about a 26-year-old who I think she's having a birthday on Ibiza. Is that right? And
that's right.
Working on that. And was there anything particular about that request that you found to be really telling about what a millennial might want?
She spoke the whole conversation. So I really think that listening is key and, asking a few key pertinent questions, but really listening to what they say and what they want. She's done the Ibiza party thing before. It's her golden birthday, 26 years old on the 26th of September. So she wants to go there, and she's done the hotels. She wants to live, do the villa with her closest friends, do hikes, go to the local hippie markets. She's not interested in partying all night at Pasha or Ushuaia. and being with her close loved ones, having a local chef come in and cook with them. So living the Ibiza style, barefoot lifestyle, I guess you could say, but in a chic, cool way.
Sounds lovely. I could use that right about now. Okay, Jennifer, thank you so much. So now I'd like to move on to Gwen Kozlowski, President of Exeter International. Hi, Gwen.
Hello.
So can you tell us, what do you think are the 3 most important things to understand about working with 30 and 40-year-olds today?
Sure. I think because a lot of our destinations are very castle/museum heavy, we have to change our mindset when working with them, because they are not looking to go and have a checklist of every castle or every museum or, a walking tour of every old town. They're really looking for highlight experiences, and that has forced us kind of to think outside the box as well when pairing them up with interesting locals who might take them on a food walking tour to places the tourists aren't, or, insider experts in certain regions. So we've really had to focus, I think, for our millennial travelers more on highlight experiences rather than, checking A, B, and C off of the checklist of Prague. I think they're also able to research on their own. So a lot of the basics they already find out. So it's up to me to really, prove my knowledge and worth with them on the first phone call as their go-to resource for the destination. And I think that's more important than ever, because they're bombarded with friends and social media and Instagram, and I have to be the final word for them to really get their confidence. And the other thing I think is important to remember, and sometimes takes us aback because we're so used to seasonal bookings and how far in advance people are booking, a lot of times millennials are booking at the very last minute, and you have to not be thrown by that and just be ready to roll with it and go and turn it around fast and make it work.
They're very last minute. And another thing is that a lot of them, I think, they ask for small components. Like, they don't think of it as, oh, I'm going to plan this complete trip to this person. They're so used to just choosing a component here, a component there, combining them themselves. How do you cope with that?
It really was a challenge at first, because we weren't set up to do a la carte pricing, and we definitely leaned more towards full on, 10-day services every day kind of programs. And over the past few years, as our demographic has changed, it's really forced us to change along with it. So oftentimes I'm giving my initial quote as options to do for days and half days in a city, full days and half day options in Budapest, or here are 3 half day options in Vienna. It just made us be more flexible in the product we're delivering, and maybe not a full-blown 10-day itinerary. Maybe it's just talking about the one day they have in Krakow.
Yeah. Are there other ways in which you found you want to be or need to be more flexible now? Like, are there other ways in which you've increased your flexibility lately to work with them more?
Yeah, I mean, well, other than the whole COVID thing and being flexible on deposits and final payments, when we're talking about millennials, we're often flexible on any minimum number of services. When I first started at Exeter, we were very rigid, and you must book the hotel with us, and we need a full program in Russia to give you the time of day. And we have backtracked on that quite a bit, and I really don't care if I book the hotel or not. If I do, great. But a lot of times when you mentioned high-low before, millennials are doing kind of interesting things like Airbnb, but they want a private guide, or an entry-level room into a great hotel, but they'll take taxis everywhere. So we've had to kind of adjust the way we approach things and how we present it, and be flexible in what we're getting back. Because I would say for us, any business is business, and I don't want to turn it away, even if it's only a half day here or there.
Right. You spoke about gaining their trust during that initial phone call. And, can you give a couple of examples of what do you say during that phone call? What approach do you take that really wins them over?
Well, I have this very annoying habit of wanting to be a know-it-all, which I have to dial back a little bit.
But when you do know it all.
It's great when they come to me with wrong information, because then that's easy to kind of give like the actual information. But a lot of times it's just, they might have done a lot of research, and what they've researched is right. But after having the phone call with them, you realize that their research doesn't even match up with the kind of trip they want to have. And so it's then, if I really know my destination, it's really easy to say, listen, I get all you've done. I see that, you're following these people on Instagram, but what it really sounds like to me, this is the kind of trip you want. And let me tell you how I can make it happen. And it's just really listening to what they really are. They all have different goals for trips. And maybe it's a trip to have fabulous Instagram posts, or maybe it's a trip to just taste amazing food that is off the beaten path. So it's up to me to listen and really convey how I can make that happen for them.
Do you even listen? Like, do you even offer them anything that's kind of cookie cutter, or do you just go straight to, you know what, I'm hearing that this is your real interest. Let me suggest something really unusual just for you.
That's a hard one, because sometimes they don't really know what they want and they say just the basics. And I still think it's pointless to say, okay, let's do a walking tour of Schönbrunn. You know, I mean, that is nothing that anybody is adding a real value to that's going to make it so memorable that they come back and that was a wow moment. So sometimes I might tell them how they can do their cookie cutter stuff on their own really efficiently, and even help them set it up, and then really make my services shine and be the special moments.
Terrific. Gwen, thank you so much. Okay, so some questions are coming in fast and furious here. So let me just move along to those. The first one is, thank you for referring to us millennials as enjoying being immersed in the local community and cultural experiences. It's so true. How can travel advisors and hotels better cater to our desire to have such meaningful experiences? I think we've heard about some of those meaningful experiences from Maita and from May. Jennifer or Gwen, do you have sort of like a particular, do you have an answer to that question about catering to that desire for meaningful experiences?
I can say for me, it's just for interesting experiences, really it's about getting to know people and less things. It's not about, you know, a palace or a museum. It's about getting to know the people that are really going to make that come alive for the client, for the guests. And that may be just one of your great guides, but it also might be, you know, a guy whose grandfather is a vintner and he'll take them up into the vineyards, or the guy that I have do our tours of Auschwitz, whose father was the original director of the camp. I mean, it's these little connections that really cement the experience and make it special.
Right. Maita, do you have it, or May or Jennifer, do you have an example off the top of your head of sort of like a really meaningful experience you provided to a traveler?
I remember we did a Normandy family, a multi-generational family trip. It wasn't millennial, but there were millennials on the trip, because it ranged from, I think, 6 or 8 years old all the way up to the 92-year-old grandfather who actually fought in the war. And we brought them to Normandy, and one of the towns did a thank you ceremony for him. And there were paparazzi and there were local people. And then they went to meet a family chateau home that was occupied by the Germans during the war. So it was a very real, authentic, collaborative experience for everybody. But like I said, it ranged from all generations. So it was very special and unique, with lots of gorgeous photos of the whole family, because about a year or two after he had passed away. So they had his medals and it was beautiful.
That is beautiful. There's another question here. Can you give an example of a unique experience you provided for millennial travelers? So that's basically a version of the exact same question. So again, Maita or May, would you like to give an example of another unique experience that you provided for millennials?
Sure, if I can. I remember a trip of a father and son. So the son was a millennial, but the father was giving him a gift. And they traveled together, and I always try to understand that I was telling you about, you know, if there is any certain activity or niche expertise or a hobby that they have. And he came up with that the son was a fanatic paraglider. So is there anywhere I said, of course, Patagonia is this wonderful place where you can paraglide. And I asked them, so are you interested in wildlife? You know, is that part of it? Well, yes, but no, not necessarily. But I have a stepson who is a fanatic paraglider, and he paraglides with condors. You know, condors are this incredible, majestic, and endangered species that flies and glides, and you know, and they are in the mountains everywhere in the Andes. So we set up this paragliding experience for the son, because the father said, no, I won't go up. But at the last minute, the son insisted, so the father did. They went up flying. And the miracle happened, because it doesn't happen all the time. Of course, it's nature, but the condors came over. So flying eye to eye with a condor, which is something incredible. The minute, the condor turned, they turned with, gliding, and the condor turns. They had these feathers that open like fingers. So they turned, the condor turned, the condor turned, they turned. There was a communication between with the condor. It was something incredible. They came down, landed, and they were so thrilled. Well, they really, from Xinjiang, they started donating and contributed and opened conservation fund to protect the condors. So that was for them like really life-changing experience. So yes, it can be anything.
Great, thank you. May, so there's the question about a unique example, but I want to throw another question that has come in at you. You can answer whichever one you want, but this is very interesting. How do you position yourselves to be different from Airbnb or Viator, who offer unique experiences for a lot less? So you do amazingly unique experiences, but also how do you explain to people that it's worth paying more for? How do you position yourself as different from Airbnb or Viator?
I give them an example of my own experience when I purchased from Viator or Airbnb. It's a shot in the dark. You have no idea what you're gonna get. And when you show up at the gathering place for a tour of the forum, say in Rome, you're there with 25 other people that you have no idea. Whatever was advertised, that you're actually joining a large group, right? The only thing I can tell you is our screening and our quality control of the experts that you are going to get for these individual experiences is the curation part you're paying for. Everyone goes through the same gate, or goes to the same place, but who you travel with and what you do inside makes a huge difference. And if you're on the internet, go search on TripAdvisor on the feedback on Wild China, you will see the difference. So this is what I tell them. But I do want to add one thing on the travel experience that they value, which I found interesting, was learning experiences. We arranged an expert, the director for, say, in Japan, Naoshima's art development area, a lot of us probably know. And this director gave an actual sit-down PPT presentation of the conception, development, and execution of Naoshima. And the millennials were like, wow, it's one thing to walk through them, but to see the brain behind it was really cool. They're into learning experiences as well.
Do you give them an example like that when you're talking to them to explain the importance of the curation and the value that they get?
Right. I think the best sales tool is other people's words. So I would look for a paragraph of review from one of our clients who visited the same area that they wanted to visit, and I'll send them that excerpt or a link to some comment on the website.
Right. Another question is, if transparency in pricing is important to this audience, how do you work with them if your company does not break down price details? Now, I think that all of you, perhaps except Gwen, usually break down the pricing. So Gwen, can you tell us how do you work with them if your company does not break down price details? I think you do. There's a trick to breaking down. You can break down some things, just not other things.
Right. We don't do a line by line itemization, but we will give all pricing by day. So if you have guests that have a hotel or don't have a hotel, that is kind of on the side. If we're looking at their day by day itinerary, we're happy to give you pricing at any time by day, which could help you or your clients make that determination of what's worth it for their budget. So we can definitely be flexible with that. We just need to know that's what they expect or what they need or what you want, and it's fine.
Great. Okay. And the last question here, how can we show millennials the value of slow travel? They tend to want to visit many cities in 2 weeks, take a photo, post it to Instagram, and move on. How do you balance listening to them with encouraging them to stay longer and immerse themselves in a destination? Who would like to take that one?
I can just jump in. Because a lot of mine are linked really well by train, and I get people that'll allocate like one day in each city. And my first question is, are you ever going back to Europe? Because so many times people are trying to cram in like the one lifetime trip to Europe in one trip. And when you talk to them about the experiences they want and then say, you know, you have 24 hours on the ground, what's most important? Sometimes, especially when you talk about how much time on the ground in each city they have, it helps them realize, wow, this pace is crazy. But sometimes there's no talking people out of it and they want a crazy pace and we're ready to roll with it. But I always try to talk people into giving cities more time.
And Maita?
Well, only that if I may add, I think it is a challenge because I think they have that shortcut reflex. They don't stand boredom or routine or dullness. So they just want to get to the destination as fast as possible. They're not about the journey, they're about the destination. They're not about the journey or the ride. So that's always a challenge, to make them stay longer and travel in depth. I agree.
Right. Jennifer, how do you convey to them the value of slow travel?
I feel like I'm starting to see it happen more and more because it started with slow food and now it's going into like slow travel as a term. But I think that once they hit the ground, I feel like they do a lot more probably than maybe other demographics or generations, I guess you could say. Because they will go out all day and, you know, try to see as much as they can. So they will go off the beaten path, but they're definitely curious. They're definitely spontaneous, and they try to get in as much as they can. But so do the other generations too, I find. I don't know that it's necessarily just millennials that do this.
Well, Americans have so little vacation time. It's just, we kind of want to pack in as much as we can. May, I'll let you have the final word here. How can we show millennials the value of slow travel?
I mix it up. I give them a sandwich. What I mean is, I may start them off, if they give me 2 weeks, I start them off in Beijing and Xi'an, looking really, really, really busy because this is what they asked for. And they came with a clear list. But I always tell them, give me 3 days. I'll take you somewhere you do not know, and we need to stay there. And I often take them to Yunnan. I put them in Shangri-La. I put them in these small, beautiful designing village boutique hotels in the village, and let them slow down physically. And just like the ambiance there with the rice paddies and the slow way of living, they start to relax. And then I finish off in Shanghai or Hong Kong, speed again. And then they always leave and tell me that slow chunk was the best part. And that's what I wanted.
That's the true vacation part of it, I think. The vacation part of the travel experience. Well, terrific. Thank you so much. You all had fascinating insights, and I'm sure everybody's very appreciative. Pavia, I hope we ended pretty much somewhat on time.
No, that was perfect and super informative. Thank you so much for being really enlightening and wonderful. It turns out I'm a millennial traveler because I want to travel all exactly the way that you guys have talked about. Thank you so much. You've answered so many of the questions and provided incredible, valuable insight. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
The next panel is going to be up in about a minute.